so hello everyone, and I'm Dr. Tushar Mehta, and we have Dr. Manish Pruthi with us. And today we will be talking about a very important topic, particularly for postgraduates, and also this video will be quite informative for all the PG aspirants and all those people who have a love for this branch called orthopedics. We'll be talking about orthopedic oncology, as I promised in the last video as well. We will be talking about a very important case, a very important topic, osteosarcoma, in which particularly we will be limiting ourselves to surface osteosarcoma. But before than that, I would like to welcome Dr. Manish Pruthi. Sir, a very, very good evening and welcome.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hi, so this is our first talk in this series of bone tumors, and we have a very good host with us, Dr. Tushar Mehta. So let's start straight away with our topic, surface osteosarcoma.
All right, sir. So all the listeners and viewers, first of all, I would like to give you a brief, and then Dr. Pruthi will share a clinical case with you. So osteosarcomas per se are of two types. One is the intramedullary osteosarcoma, and the other one is the surface osteosarcoma. We have deliberately limited ourselves to be talking about surface osteosarcoma in this particular presentation today. Intramedullary is something that you guys read often, see often. So I thought that, and after talking to Dr. Pruthi, we thought that probably we should start with something which is not that commonly read and seen. So surface osteosarcomas are of three types. One is the parosteal, second one is the periosteal, and third one is the high-grade surface osteosarcomas. Now, in the surface osteosarcomas, of course, we will be discussing all the three, par, peri, and the high grade. But let's try to understand their, their aggressiveness as per their grading. So first of all, when we talk about the low grade, that is the parosteal osteosarcoma. When we talk about the intermediate grade, that is the periosteal osteosarcoma. And when we talk about the high grade, definitely, as the name suggests, there is a high grade surface osteosarcoma. Guys, we will be talking about their presentation, their radiological findings, their diagnosis, treatment, outcome, everything. But in this unique series in which I have decided with Dr. Pruthi that we will be bringing a clinical case presentation, right from the word of mouth that Dr. Pruthi has seen, and we will be starting with that. So I invite Dr. Pruthi to start with the clinical presentation and take this series ahead for all the listeners and viewers.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Dr. Tushar, for an introduction and for informing us about the type of surface osteosarcoma. So what we are concerned today is the two histologies which often confuse us, which is a parosteal osteosarcoma and a periosteal osteosarcoma. As far as the high-grade surface osteosarcoma is concerned, it behaves like a conventional intramedullary osteosarcoma. So I have kept that aside, and maybe we can discuss this with the conventional osteosarcoma. So I think we'll focus today's talk on these two histologies, which is parosteal and periosteal, and we'll be discussing in the same headings as Dr. Tushar has already mentioned. So this is the presentation which is divided into these parts: the presentation, the radiological findings, diagnosis, treatment, and the outcome. So let's start with the first part. First, the presentation of a surface osteosarcoma. So we'll be starting with the case. This is a 29-year-old female. She presented to me, I think almost 7 years back, with a pain in left knee for a year. There was no trauma or fever. She had a mild swelling in the lateral part of thigh for 3 months. So I'm just keeping the salient history features which are relevant for this case. We'll be ignoring the rest of the history because as a clinician at this level, we do not need to go into all the history elements. As far as the examination findings were concerned, there was a swelling in the anterolateral thigh. It was hard, fixed, non-tender, and approximately 7 by 6 centimeters. And it had an ill-defined borders. I could not feel the borders up and down. The skin was normal. There was no regional lymphadenopathy, and the joint range of movement was absolutely normal. So this was the clinical photo of the patient, but this was after a biopsy. Sorry, I didn't have a photo before a biopsy because this patient presented to me with an incision biopsy. But this was just to get an idea where was the swelling and how diffuse was the bulge.
So that biopsy was already done somewhere else, sir?
Yeah, sir. This biopsy was done at some other institute before she presented to us. So, but yes, this was the only clinical photo that I had because we didn't have a photo before the biopsy. So as far as the surface osteosarcomas are concerned, most of these patients, because these are low to intermediate grade, most of these patients will be symptomatic for many months, sometimes years before they come to us. As far as the sex predilection is concerned, there is a female preponderance for parosteal, but nothing for periosteal. Age group is outside the conventional age. Like we usually say that osteosarcoma is a disease of a growing skeleton, which is second decade of life. But surface osteosarcomas are more common in third or fourth decade of life, between 20 to 40 years. As far as the site is concerned, the distal femur is the most common site for parosteal. It is classically in the posterior aspect of the distal femur. But for periosteal, which is an intermediate grade tumor, we usually see in the diaphyseal region of femur or the tibia. Parosteal can happen at other sites also, like lower end radius, proximal radius, in the proximal tibia also, but the most common site is still the distal femur for a parosteal osteosarcoma. And if someone asks you which is the most common surface osteosarcoma, the answer is parosteal, as almost 75% of surface osteosarcoma is parosteal, and very rarely we'll see a periosteal surface osteosarcoma. It is much more rare disease as compared to parosteal. Coming to the radiological findings, I think this is the key, and this is where we all get confused. I think Dr. Tushar will agree with me. This is the most common trouble with our residents as far as their examination, their exam is concerned, because this is where the teacher confuses them often. So what does it look like? I think as with any other bony tumor, most important thing in asking for an imaging is a plain radiographs. This gives us the most useful information as far as what type of a tumor that we are dealing with. So let's start with the plain radiographs. If we are seeing a parosteal osteosarcoma, you can see from this imaging that it is very densely ossified. Fine. It is as dense as the normal bone. It is not lightly ossified, it is very densely ossified, and you can see this like some feathery kind of a picture, which is very classical in parosteal osteosarcoma. Surface is lobulated and could be less denser than the base. Okay, so you can see in this X-ray also, I'm not able to point out, but the tumor which is close to the bone is much more dense than the tumor which is at a little periphery. And this is very classical for a surface osteosarcoma. There is a linear translucent zone, which is we call it the cleavage plane. This is very classical for parosteal because it keeps on encircling the bone after having an attachment from one side. But it will not involve the other part of the cortex. So we can see a cleavage plane between the normal cortex and where the tumor is encircling. I think I guess I am clear. And the most common differential for parosteal is not periosteal on radiology. It is myositis. Fine. So I think Dr. Tushar will agree with me for this.
But there is one query that I asked as a resident also, and I'm asking you today again. Of course, now I want others to ask you as well. How do you differentiate between the two, sir?
So as I have mentioned here, the surface is less denser than the base. Yes. So parosteal is densely ossified in the central part and lesser at the periphery. While in the myositis, the ossification is totally opposite. It starts ossifying from the periphery and the center part is more radiolucent.
The zonation phenomenon.
Yeah, zonation phenomena. So myositis also is classically a very dense picture next to the bone, but you will definitely get a history of trauma. And if you see an X-ray in an early phase of myositis, then you will see more dense in the periphery and less dense in the center. I think that is the key to differentiate between myositis and the parosteal.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Going to the other common surface osteosarcoma which we face is a periosteal. So periosteal, as you can compare from the previous X-ray, it is more radiolucent. It is not that radiodense. And then periosteal has this spicules of bone radiating perpendicular to the cortex, which we call as an hair-on end periosteal reaction sometimes. So this is very classical for periosteal. And periosteal, because it is intermediate grade, it can often show the Codman's triangle. I'll be showing in the next X-ray how a Codman's looks like in a periosteal osteosarcoma. As you can see this is a tumor confined to one side of the bone, medial side, and you can see a periosteal lifting in both AP and the lateral view, and this is a classical Codman's triangle in a case of, this was a biopsy proven case of a periosteal osteosarcoma. But just to make you explain, this is a classical Codman's triangle, which you can see in a periosteal osteosarcoma. Other point that I want to mention for periosteal is the tumor is often small. Usually you will not see very big periosteal osteosarcoma as vis-a-vis and parosteal. Parosteal is usually very radiodense. It keeps on growing slowly. But periosteal, it is painful and tumor is usually small. Although in Indian subcontinent, we can see a large periosteal osteosarcoma. And as you can see in the MRI, there is only a very small tumor on the anteromedial part. Even this was not visible on the X-ray, but patient was complaining of pain. That is why we got an MRI done. And we could see a small anteromedial tumor. We did a biopsy and it was a classical periosteal osteosarcoma. Okay. So these are the key radiographic difference between parosteal versus periosteal that we should remember. Parosteal is radiodense. It has a cleavage plane and most common site is distal femur. And the surface is lobulated but less dense. Periosteal has a hair on end or a spiculated periosteal reaction, can have Codman's triangle, and the tumor is small. I think once we know this difference, we'll not get confused whether we are dealing with parosteal or a periosteal osteosarcoma.
Because I think what you're doing now is one of the most important things for all the DNB and MS candidates, that they get short note often for 3 marks, for 5 marks, or even they're asked in an X-ray. So it was one of the most wonderful spotter for an X-ray also, sir. So, sir, how about managing it? Like, what was the approach?
So as far as, like, as soon as we do an X-ray, we suspect some bony neoplasm, the next logical investigation is an MRI, because MRI helps us in identifying the extent of the tumor. Okay. And to plan for a biopsy and to see the relation with the surrounding structures. So this was our current case. As we discussed, 29 years female. We can see a small tumor on the lateral aspect on the surface. And as you can see the MRI pictures, the marrow is absolutely clear. The tumor is right on the surface. It is not involving the marrow cavity. So this was our case. But yes, we can have a medullary involvement in both parosteal and periosteal. So sometimes the teacher will confuse. It's a surface osteosarcoma, whether it will have a medullary involvement or not. But yes, medullary involvement is common. It is seen only in MRI. You cannot comment it on X-ray. It can be seen in both parosteal and periosteal. Exact percentage is not known. Even we published our data on periosteal osteosarcoma from Tata Memorial Hospital. We had actually 18 cases of periosteal osteosarcoma and we had a medullary involvement in 58%. There are other series which shows as high as 70% or some series shows 24%. So actually it is very variable. So it can be 24 to 70%. So if a teacher asks you whether medullary involvement can be there, your answer should be yes. Exact percentage, it's a very wide range. It depends upon the series. Same for parosteal. Okay. The significance is unknown, but it might suggest an aggressive biology, the medullary involvement. So proceeding to the case further, how to diagnose and how to stage. As Dr. Tushar has already mentioned, I'll be going to the staging, but parosteal is a low-grade osteosarcoma. And we do not need much of a staging investigation, but periosteal is intermediate grade and it is staged as the conventional osteosarcomas. So biopsy, a core needle biopsy is the key for diagnosis. So parosteal is low grade while periosteal is intermediate grade, and periosteal is predominantly cartilage dominating. It is called as a chondroblastic variant. But a recurrent parosteal can de-differentiate into a high grade sarcoma, which we should be aware of. A parosteal, initially it remains low grade, but when it keeps on recurring, it de-differentiates into high grade, and sometimes we'll see a recurrent parosteal only, which is a high grade osteosarcoma. Staging, as I have already mentioned, and Dr. Tushar has said, parosteal is a low grade, so only a chest X-ray is enough. While periosteal, we do as a conventional osteosarcoma, so we do a plain CT scan of the chest and a bone scan. So with this, we have diagnosed what kind of osteosarcoma we are dealing with and whether it has spread to the other sites or not. So once we are done with this, we proceed to the treatment part. So the treatment in both is a surgical excision. Whether it is parosteal or periosteal, the surgical excision is the key for treatment. whether you have to do an amputation, whether you have to do a limb salvage, intercalary resection, or hemicortical resection. It depends upon the case. How much marrow is involved, whether how close to the joint it is, how big the tumor, what is the status of neurovascular bundle. So that this requires experience. And I think with experience, you know what kind of a resection it needs. But if you can see that the center round, the goal is to get a tumor-free margins. Whether you are getting it with an amputation or an intercalary resection, that doesn't matter. That is what your planning is, your training is. But the aim is to get free margins. So in parosteal, the treatment is wide excision and that is curative. In periosteal osteosarcoma, the treatment is wide excision with or without use of chemotherapy. There is a lot of confusion in periosteal osteosarcoma whether to use chemotherapy or not, as it is an intermediate grade tumor. So this is an NCCN guideline, which is a National Comprehensive Cancer Network, the US guidelines. They also suggest consider chemotherapy in periosteal osteosarcoma. These are the European guidelines, which says although chemotherapy has been used, no benefit has been proven in this malignancy. So the world is also confused whether to use chemotherapy or not. This is a big series of a periosteal osteosarcoma where they have treated 33 patients, and the 10-year survival was 86 versus 83% between chemotherapy versus no chemotherapy. So there was no difference whether you have used chemotherapy or not. This was our series from Tata Memorial Hospital where I was a co-author. We treated 18 cases of periosteal osteosarcomas. We used chemotherapy in all, but there was no significant difference as compared to the world literature. So we have concluded that the role of chemotherapy is still debatable and surgical excision forms the mainstay of treatment. So as far as both the tumors are concerned, treatment is surgery. In periosteal, you can consider chemotherapy, but that requires a tumor board decision rather than your individual decision. That is what is my conclusion or what is my suggestion in the end of treatment. So coming to the last part, the outcome of parosteal is good. It shows almost like 85 to 90% 5-year survival, and usually patients are long-term survival. Only problem with parosteal is if it recurs, because if it recurs, it can come as a high-grade sarcoma. Okay. The outcome of periosteal osteosarcoma, it shows a very good survival as compared to conventional. It is also like 80-85% 5-year survival. Yes, but it is little inferior as compared to a parosteal osteosarcoma. So this was our case. She had a periosteal osteosarcoma on biopsy. We did a lower end femur resection. You can see the resection specimen. We put a prosthesis and patient has completed 6 years of follow-up. We gave her adjuvant chemotherapy and she is completely asymptomatic. So a periosteal treated well, usually the patients are long-term survivors. I think this is in short about parosteal versus periosteal osteosarcomas.
A wonderful presentation and along with the clinical input, sir. Sir, I would want to know one thing here for the residents, particularly for second, third year residents or even the senior residents who are listening and watching us. If they ask you, let us say there's a Viva exam, and if they ask you what is the difference between peri and parosteal, what are the 3-4 points that you and me can brush up from the presentation that we have just given?
So I think first important is a parosteal is a low grade malignancy. Periosteal is an intermediate grade malignancy. The parosteal involves the metaphyseal region of the distal femur most commonly, the posterior aspect. Periosteal is mainly a diaphyseal lesion in the femur or the tibia. Okay. And I think the third important point is in the parosteal, we can say in radiographically, it is very radio dense. Okay. And it keeps encircling the bone with a cleavage plane. While the periosteal looks little more aggressive, it shows the periosteal reactions, it shows the Codman strangle. Fine. So it does not have a classical radiodense picture, it is a radiolucent lesion. So I think if we know these differences, this should be fine. If they can tell this much, I think the teacher will be happy.
Happy, very happy. Certainly very happy. And I think you should be happy if your Viva reaches at this point.
Yes, absolutely. If my student can tell these points, then I think I am happy and I'll accept, okay, at least he knows the basics about surface osteosarcoma. I think that is more than
I think your Viva will reach surface osteosarcoma only if the examiner is done with conventional. That is also the point.
You don't know what kind of a case you will get and what is in the mind of the examiner on that day. Maybe he just wants to ask you surface osteosarcoma because he knows that you must have read conventional.
Yes.
So I think you have to prepare for surface also.
But the listeners and viewers should not worry. The conventional osteosarcoma will be on its way again in the form of a clinical presentation. And of course, we too will be delivering that as well very soon, in which we will be discussing all the aspects of it, and we'll be talking about the high-grade surface osteosarcoma as well. So I think with this note, we can bring this presentation towards an end. And thank you so much, Dr. Manish, for this wonderful presentation and sharing a clinical case of yours. Thank you so much, sir. And
thank you very much, Dr. Tushar. I think it was a great interaction, and maybe I think the students will learn something from this presentation.
And guys, if anybody is having any query regarding the topic that we have discussed today, this video will be shared on almost all social media platforms. So you can put up your queries, and me and Dr. Pruthi will be more than happy to answer and get back to you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Dr. Manish, once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tushar. Okay. Thank you, guys. See you. Bye.